So I happen to have a book called Solutions to Political Polarization.
He's got you got a book on everything.
Thank you for the promo. It's one of the things that I say in the intro of that book, and it's an edited volume, is that we don't have a consistent definition about what we actually mean by polarization. All right, so polarization is not necessarily a bad thing. And if you go back 50 years, there was actually a committee of the American Political Science Association which said the problem in the United States is that the parties are too similar to each other, and that what we really need is to be more like Britain. Now, we're like, oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? And actually, even my book, which was what I think 2014, it's like, oh my gosh, we yearn for that level of polarization right now. So the one way to define polarization is you look at, say, the ideological coherence of the parties and how distant they are from each other. So how dissimilar is your average Democrat from your average Republican? What's like the ideological distance between them? Whereas a lot of what we're talking about when we think about polarization is sometimes what we call, incivility, or what law professors would call constitutional hardball. The willingness to engage in what might be the kind of political weapons of mass destruction as opposed to the tools of conventional political warfare, right? And so that the norms that had constrained our politics have now dissipated. We can see this across any number of areas, whether you're talking about judicial appointments or you're talking about impeachments, or if you're talking about stuff that's happening at state levels. In the election context, the fact that we have all these laws that are reorganizing the election administration system to replace it with people with partisan officials. There are some things that we can do for each type of polarization. The difficulty is that in a world where there is no trusted, neutral referee of American politics, it makes it particularly difficult. At the Cyber Policy Center today, we had a seminar that we'll put on the web with the head of the Swedish Psychological Defense Agency, okay? It's like, oh my God, that seems pretty Orwellian to us, right? And he was saying, it was sort of charming and Scandinavian, what he was saying, which is like, all you need is you need to get the government to try to combat things like disinformation and bring people together, and also to bring civil society together. And I'm like, yeah, okay, in Sweden, the problem, if you look at, and going back to the media environment, you all remember, some of you are old enough to remember Walter Cronkite, right? So how did he end each evening news broadcast? He says, that's just the way it is. Well, there is no one in American society right now who has the credibility to say that's just the way it is.
Can I add something on that?
Yeah.
I mean, but that also requires discipline from those who might be in the other party. I see this, and I'm sure you've all seen this. I mean, we all saw the recent news about Mike Pence saying he wouldn't endorse or vote for Donald Trump. And I saw a lot of people who are more on the left in my feed start to hammer him for all of the things all of the wrongs that he had committed as a member of the right. I've seen this with regard to Liz Cheney. I've seen this with regard to Brad Raffensperger and others. And that is feeding into the divisiveness, the polarization. There is an opportunity. I often think back to that moment on January 7th, 2021, where there was a big tent opportunity. And it wasn't just one party that squandered it. And again, this is not 50-50. I want to be very careful here. But it isn't 100-0 either. And there was an opportunity that was squandered. And those opportunities don't come around very often, to build a bigger tent around maybe a very limited set of principles, but a set of principles that you can really hold on to. That elections matter, that there are winners and losers, and that the winner gets to govern. It's pretty basic stuff for a democracy.
But there's another thing too. We've got to get some of these nation states out of our elections. I mean, they are really influencing the polarization stuff. Yeah. And I think if we could wave a magic wand and subtract them, you would see there's not all that much going on that's just, they're really frothing things up, and that's a big problem.